What's up guys, today we're going to be going over all these shotguns in the game and breaking down their DPS and total damage output, and also testing a bunch of the different perks and ways of shooting these shotguns to see which one results in the highest DPS and things like that. And we're going to be literally covering every shotgun in the game. So first with a 140 RPM on Greg, it hits 11,231. Now with a 80 RPM, 17,291. Now with a 65 RPM slug, 17,564. Now with a 65 RPM regular shotgun, 17,997, and finally with a 55 RPM, 19,925, with accuracy, 35.5 thousand, and with tractor cannon, I hit roughly like 18,000. Then on the second shot, once he is debuffed, it's like hit roughly like 24,000. So recapping those numbers really quick, 140 RPM hit 11,231. Then as you see, the 80 RPM hit 54% more than the 140. And you can see all the other numbers up there also, with the 55 RPM hitting 77.4% more damage than the 140. And we're going to start breaking down the rate of fire of all these shotguns, and they all have full auto on it. The only one that doesn't is the 140, but its intrinsic perk is full auto. So starting with the 140 RPM, just shooting one magazine to see what the base DPS of these shotguns is, and that took 3.033 seconds. Now with the 80 RPM, shooting off 6 shots, which is one magazine, it takes 3.333 seconds. Now with the 65 RPM slug, 6 magazine, that's going to take 4.133 seconds. Now with the regular 65 RPM shotgun, it's going to be a 5 magazine, and that takes 3.283 seconds. And finally with the 55 RPM, shooting off 4 shots, that took 3.017 seconds. So looking at the DPS of all these different shotguns, the 80 RPM is actually the highest at 31,000, with the 140 right behind it at 29.6. Then everyone else is at 25 to 27 range. And for one magazine with no reload, these DPS numbers are not good. It's only going to go downhill from here. Also, let's go ahead and look at those 2 exotics we showed off earlier. First with accuracy, shooting off 1 magazine, which is going to be 6 shots. See how long that takes. It's going to take 5.533 seconds. Now with tractor cannon with a 7 magazine, see how long that takes. And once again, the first shot tractor is without the debuff, then the last 6 will be with the debuff. So the DPS of those 2 are 38,000 with accuracy, then 36,000 with tractor, which are a little bit better than that of the legendary shotguns, but still not that great considering they're both heavy weapons. So far we've only tested the DPS over 1 magazine and haven't reloaded at all. So there's going to be a few different ways of actually going about reloading with a shotgun, because the fact it's going to be 1 bullet at a time and not a full magazine. So what you can do is, we'll simply just shoot and reload the entire magazine, then shoot again. So first trying that and seeing how that impacts the DPS of this weapon, we're going to be shooting off 3 magazines, so 12 bullets with this 55 RPM shotgun for both tests. 12.883 seconds, meaning DPS is 18,559, which is very bad and pretty much unusable for a special weapon. So what's another way of doing this? Well, after the first magazine, what you can do is just reload, then shoot 1 shot, reload, shoot 1 shot over and over again, and just reload cancel over and over. And this actually results in a slightly quicker rate of fire than actually just reloading all the bullets at once at 11.1 seconds, meaning the DPS is 21,541 over 3 entire magazines worth of shots. But that number still isn't great by any means. So how about with like something like a 140? What's the best way to do sustained DPS with something like this? Well, since the intrinsic perk is full auto, that means you can use something like auto loading holster or field prep. So just looking at the base DPS over 2 magazines is shooting, reloading like normal. So we have like something to go off of for the future tests. That's going to take roughly 7.767 seconds. I mean, DPS is 20,244, which, once again, kind of on the low side for special weapons. But let's go ahead and throw in some of those other perks and see if we can boost that number up. So first with auto-loading holster, we're going to shoot 7 shots, swap to a different weapon, and wait until we hear that noise, then swap back and shoot 7 again. And as you see, that actually took longer than just reloading. So there's really no point of doing that unless you're comboing that with a different weapon in the downtime while you're waiting for that reload, but this is just about shotguns and not combos. So what about field prep? Well, field prep really isn't going to change much outside of the fact that you don't need someone like Lunafaction to get max reload, so it's going to be roughly the same time that we tested before at that roughly 7.6 seconds. So with the higher impact shotguns like the 55s and 65s, it's definitely better just to reload cancel each shot once you get past that first magazine. Then with like the 140s and 80s, it's probably better just to reload the full magazine at once and then shoot it again. But there's really no great option after the first magazine with any of the shotguns. Now looking at the total damage output of these shotguns, with the 140 we hold 25, with the 80 we hold 15, with the 65 slug and the 65 normal shotgun we hold 17 in both, and finally with the 55 RPM shotgun we hold 18. So looking at the total damage output of these different shotguns, The 55 is the highest at 358,000. Then everyone else is in like that 260 to 300 range, which isn't great for a special. Once again, most snipers are in the 450,000 range. And all those snipers also have way better sustained DPS, so these shotguns aren't really seeming too great in Shadowkeep so far. Their DPS over one magazine over their entire reserves or total damage output is just lacking across the board. Now looking at the two exotics once again for the total damage output. With accuracy we hold 12, with tractor we hold 17. So the total damage output is 426,000 with accuracy, then 391,000 with tractor, which once again isn't bad, but they both are exotic power weapons, so there are better options. Now let's go ahead and look at a few of the perks that increase damage output with shotguns. For example, Trench Barrel on a 140 RPM. Once again, without Trench Barrel, we hit 11,231. Now with Trench Barrel, we hit 16,843, which is exactly 50% more damage. And you get that for 3 shots, then you have to reproc it, so testing the rate of fire of that over the first magazine. That's going to take 5.15 seconds, meaning the Trench Barrel DPS is 26,163, and without proccing Trench Barrel, it was 29,623, so we actually lost DPS proccing Trench Barrel. So pretty much the only time to use Trench Barrel is at the beginning of a magazine, so just melee, then shoot off the entire magazine. The first 3 will be with Trench Barrel, then the last 5 will be without, but this is pretty much the only way to keep your DPS at least decent while using Trench Barrel. As you see, it's 19.6 thousand, then without it would have been 20.2, so it's not too far off. You still are losing DPS, but what you will be gaining is total damage output. You proc Trench Barrel on every single shot, you're going to be doing 421,000 total damage compared to 280,000 without Trench Barrel at all. So if you're looking for total damage output, proc and Trench Barrel will definitely help, but for DPS, not so much. The other main perk on shotguns is 1-2 punch, and this is going to be a 65 RPM shotgun, so looking at the damage, it's landing at 17,140. Then the melee hits 14,709, so almost the same damage per melee as the actual shotgun shot. And as you see, like normal, you can get 2 melees off per 1-2 punch proc. So testing the rate of fire of this combo, we're going to shoot, then punch twice, and do that 5 times for the entire magazine. That took 10.783 seconds, meaning the DPS of 1-2 punch is 21,583, and if we didn't proc 1-2 punch ever over that magazine, it would have been 27,409. So once again, we're losing DPS, but we're going to be gaining a lot more total damage output at 838,000 compared to 305,000 without proccing 1-2 punch ever. So using 1-2 punch actually lowers your DPS of your shotgun. It's only when you throw in those crazy combos such as Liar's Handshake or the Worm God Caress where 1-2 punch DPS is really high. But just on the shotgun alone, it actually lowers the DPS and only increases the total damage output, just like Trench Barrel. So there's a lot of numbers going on in this video. First thing is, all these shotguns damage is very low in this meta. I feel like shotguns got destroyed time and time again in year 2, when things like Lunafaction and Rally Barricades still had auto-loading on them. So they nerfed the rate of fire and damage of shotguns time and time again because of the fact that you could pretty much shoot off the entire magazine very quickly and never have to reload. But now in this meta where, you know, that's out of the game and we do have to reload, reloading each pellet of a shotgun just completely destroys the DPS of the weapon. Even doing the reload canceling barely helped. And even at that, our DPS was like 21,000, which is extremely low for special weapons in this game. Something like a God Roll Sniper does 34,000 DPS over its entire reserves, and we're talking about a 140 RPM shotgun only doing 29,000 DPS over its first magazine with no reloads taken into account. Just let that sink in. A sniper that you reload like 3 times still maintains over 30,000 DPS, while a shotgun without reloading ever is not even hitting 30,000. Like, they destroyed the damage of shotguns in this game. And the 2 main perks we have that increases damage on shotguns for boss fights, so not including something like Rampage or Swashbuckler, because for those perks you have to kill a bunch of ads to actually get the damage increase. So for bosses, pretty much the only thing you have is Trench Barrel and 1-2 punch, which neither of those increase your DPS and only increase your total damage output on shotguns, unless you're doing some combo with 1-2 punch. So shotguns as a whole just feel very weak in this meta, and there's really no perks that necessarily help them out, except 1-2 punch. That is pretty much the only relevant shotgun in the game, and that's only because of all those crazy combos. There's one perk in Destiny's history that is pretty much needed to make shotguns in this meta good again, and that is from Destiny 1 with Final Round. Shotguns in Destiny 1 were more or less the same as they are right now without auto-loading in the game, but they were still good. And one of the main reasons they were so good in PvE in Destiny 1 was Final Round. Once you shut off your first magazine, you got into that situation where you were reload canceling, and when you did that, every single bullet procced Final Round. So that was pretty much a 50% increase to your DPS, with pretty much no trade-off. And something like that is pretty much needed in this meta to make shotguns good again. And not only that, I really think shotguns just need an increase of base damage overall also. Like the fact that at 140 RPM without reloading was doing under 30,000 DPS is just silly. So what should they do to fix shotguns in this meta without, you know, making auto-loading back in the game or whatever? One, probably take a look at the base damage of shotguns as a whole. Probably need like a 25-30% buff, to be honest, if not slightly even higher. But then they really just need a few perks that actually help it out, kind of like the sniper perks like triple tap and fireline. Like snipers right now have a lot of really good perks that help them out in this game, while shotguns kind of really don't. Trench barrel doesn't really work that well anymore because of the fact that it only works for 3 shots and you have to reload, you know. Trench barrel isn't what it used to be. And 1-2 punch is still a very good perk, but it only really shines with all those different combos. But when it's just the shotgun you're looking at, 1-2 punch is also kind of lackluster. And to be honest, at this point, they should probably go back on the trench barrel change and make it just last the entire magazine. That wouldn't even be broken. That would just make shotguns kind of relevant. So I think that's all I gotta say about shotguns right now. They're very lackluster. They just feel very underwhelming. They definitely need a lot of help. Let me know if you've been using shotguns in Shadowkeep and which one is your favorite, or which perks you'd like to see come back to Destiny 2, or if you'd like to see a trench barrel buff, or, you know, whatever. I would definitely like to hear you guys' opinion on this topic. Anyways, thanks for watching. Catch you guys next time.